All right, I'm going to show you how to create layer masks. Layer masks are where you have a layer underneath and use a mask to either cover off part of that picture so you can't see it, or cover off everything it's not masking so only that part appears, and that's most of the time done with different shapes, or it can be done with text. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So for example, here is a mask I've created where I've used a pattern in the background and I've masked off my name, so only the pattern only shows through where my name is. Here it's the opposite, where you can see that I've used the layer mask to hide the pattern where the letters of my name are, and here's an example where I've used a shape. Alright, so how do I do it? Here's my blank document here. I'm going to start, this is my layers area, I'm going to start by creating a new group, and within that group I'm going to use the paint bucket to fill it in with a pattern. So instead of using a color, I'm going to say up here, instead of foreground, I'll say pattern, and I'll choose a pattern I recently created, so I may as well use this space pattern. And before I paint it in, I'm going to create a new layer to paint it on. So here we go, I'm going to push new layer button and paint it in. So right now I have layer 1 and my background. I'm going to create a group to put these in. So this little folder is a group because I'm going to create the layer mask on the group. You'll see what I mean in a sec, but we can put things within this folder. It's kind of like putting things in a folder on your computer. All right, now what I'm going to do is get my typing tool. I'm going to make sure I've clicked within this group, and then I'm going to click here. I'm going to choose a font if I want to, and choose whatever you like, and maybe I'll make it size 72 because of the size of the document I'm working with here, and I'll write my name. You can see it's overlapped a little bit, and that's because I've been playing around with this button here. This is a way that you could really customize the way your text appears, and what I was doing was playing with the line spacing there. If I put it on automatic, you can see it jumps to a more standard spacing apart. But interestingly, you can change this number to anything lower or higher than its original number to do things like having the letters touch a little bit or overlap. And interestingly as well, you can adjust this this number to change the spacing between letters. So here there's 0, or the standard spacing between letters. Here's what 200 looks like, so very wide. Negative 100, they're all bunched together. Let's try 100. There we go. Now I can make this layer bigger or smaller, of course by changing the font size, but I could also just transform it by going to Edit, Transform, and Scale to make it bigger, or rotate if I wanted to rotate it. You play around with these different things and see what they all do, but here we go. Scale makes it bigger. Now if I don't hold Shift while I do this, I might end up skewing it fat or tall, and it might look funny. But if I hold Shift while I do it, it'll scale uniformly and keep the aspect ratio. All right, now I'm going to push Enter. All right, so I have my name. What we're going to figure out how to do now is create a mask using this. This here is our magic wand selection tool. So if I click that, there's some different options for this tool. I can make new selections like this. So every time I click, it selects a new thing. But I can also add to the previous selection with this button. So what that does is whatever you've selected previously, it just keeps adding to that. Incidentally, I'll show you how this works, and I'll show you another way you could do it as well. There we go. I'm selecting every letter like that. Now I have the whole name selected, and now I'm going to create a layer mask. So go back here to this tool, my Move tool. I'm going to click here on Group 1. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make it so so the pattern only shows through where the letters are. And here's how we do that. So I select my group, I go up to Layer, Layer Mask, and I'm going to choose Reveal Selection. So that means everything else will disappear. Okay, now right now it just looks like my black name on a white background, but that's because this layer, my name, is above the background layer. If I was to turn that off, you'll see the pattern shows through. Okay, so that's how you do that. I'm going to duplicate this folder, this whole group, so duplicate group, so I can show you the other way of masking, which is to, instead of having the pattern show through only where the letters are, it'll be the opposite. You can sort of see a thumbnail of the mask here. I'm going to delete that mask by right-clicking and saying delete layer mask. There we go. And now we're going to do the opposite. No, like I was saying before, I can, when I choose my layer, my letters layer there, my text layer, I can start doing this. But what I could also do is just select everything else. I could have done that last time. And then I want to add to my selection again because it doesn't select the parts that are inside the letter, like this. So just look around for any enclosed sort of shape within the letter and select those, like in my E's and A's. There we go. And now, just like before, this is going to give you the same result, but then I'll undo it and show you how to do it the other way. So let's select this group, and we'll go to Layer, and then Layer Mask, and then we'll say Hide Selection. Just like before, when I turn this off, you can see it shows the pattern there. Now I'm going to back this up. This is my history tool here, so I can go back to before I created the mask. It's kind of like doing undo, but it shows you a list of things in order that you did them. Now, when I click here, I can say Layer, Layer Mask, and Reveal Selection. Now, what it does then is creates a mask that hides everything that was within the selected area, which was my name. I can turn that layer off and you can see that. Now it kind of just looks like white text on top of a pattern, but then you can do interesting things like apply layer styles to it. So check this out. So I click this group and go to Layer, Layer Style. Let's drop a shadow, and then you'll see within there, it's a little subtle, but if I make it bigger, you can see it kind of looks like we've printed out a piece of paper with this pattern on it and cut these letters directly out of the piece of paper, or that's what it looks like anyway. So this layer effect is just emphasizing that. There you go. So that's how you create layer masks. I can do this with shapes as well. Let's copy this group one last time. Duplicate group. So let's turn off that group, and then we'll go here. We're going to delete the layer mask just like before. Now we have this name layer turned off. We don't need it for this exam, so I'm going to delete this layer. And this time I'm going to create a shape. So I'm going to click on that group so that I create the shape within it. I'm going to go here. This is my custom shapes tool. This might be your rectangle tool or whatever, but I'm going to go to my custom shapes tool. I'm going to go up here and select. You could select anything you wanted, but I'm going to keep the little sort of explosion looking thing selected. And I'm just going to drag it out over top of the space here. And I might move it to make it a little more central with the move tool. And then when I'm happy, what I'm going to do is select it. Now this is hard. This is a vector shape and we can't use our selection tool on it. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to right click on the layer. I'm going to turn it from a vector into like to a raster layer. So I'm going to say rasterize layer. What that means is it turns it into just its pixel equivalent instead of being a shape that you could scale infinitely. And I'm going to use my magic wand tool, click here within that shape, and then I will do the following. So just like before, I want my space part to show only where the red shape is now. So I'm going to go to Layer, Layer Mask, and I'm going to say Reveal Selection. Now it doesn't look like anything because I did it on the wrong layer. I should have been doing it on the group. So I just did undo, click here on the group, and I'll say Layer, Layer Mask, and Reveal Selection. And then when I turn off the shape, this space shows through, and it still has that layer effect applied from the previous example. But there you go. That's how you can create different layer masks within Photoshop.